Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind adjust the theme, crossing new frontiers to conquer today's challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine.
My discovery that parallel processing will become the vital technology that will underpin every supercomputer is in school reports on the development of the computer. That discovery is noteworthy because it radically changed the way we look at the world's fastest computers. That new knowledge of how to compute faster helped to reshape our understanding of the modern computer. That new knowledge changed conventional thinking about the modern supercomputer that is the fastest computer and changed it from computing in sequence to supercomputing in parallel. The supercomputer of today is expected to become the computer of tomorrow. Back in 1996, I was honored at the 50th anniversary of the computer. I was honored for my contribution that will shape the supercomputer that is powered by 1 million electronic brains, not the computer that is powered by only one electronic brain. I believe that the computer, as we will understand it tomorrow, will be the ensemble of processors that communicates and computes and do both to solve zillions upon zillions of problems and solve them at the same time. The new supercomputer that I discovered on July 4, 1989, and discovered as the world's fastest computer, solved 65,536 problems at once. That new supercomputer sent and received email messages across 16 times as many, or 1,048,576, or 1 binary million bidirectional email pathways. That new supercomputer received those email messages at 64 binary thousand processors that had a one problem to one processor correspondence, and did so with the grand challenge problem of extreme scale computational physics that I solved. Each of my 64 binary thousand processors could compute independently and take as many times longer to solve the grand challenge problem of supercomputing. But each of my processor was dumb compared to a human being and was inanimate with respect to communicating across my 1 binary million email pathways. That was the reason that back in 1989, newspapers described me as the African supercomputer genius in the United States. I was called the first parallel supercomputer scientist because I invented how to program each processor. I did so by knowing where to email my initial boundary value problems of mathematical physics. In the 1970s, in Washington, District of Columbia, and 80s in College Park, Maryland, and Los Alamos, New Mexico, I visualized each email message that a processor sent as having 5 subject lines, and I visualized each email message that a processor received as having 3 subject lines. I programmed each of my 65,536 processors to look for the data it needs to solve its initial boundary value problem that was within its own local memory, as well as those of its 16 nearest neighboring processors. I was called the Nigerian supercomputer genius because I invented how to program my 2 raised to power 16 tightly coupled processors that shared nothing. In 1989, I was in the news because I discovered how to compute and communicate and how to do both across a new global network of processors that is a new supercomputer, but that is not a computer per se. That new computer is a new internet de facto. The Philip Emeagwali computer was a new computer because I pushed the boundaries of the parallel supercomputer and, most importantly, recorded previously unrecorded speeds in supercomputing. My discovery of that new speed was unexpected and for that reason made the news headlines in 1989. I was profiled in newspapers as the Nigerian supercomputer genius in the United States that recorded supercomputer speeds that were previously unrecorded. My contribution was an invention of a new internet. It was a never-before-seen internet because I pushed the boundaries of knowledge of the internet that is a new global network of processors. It was new knowledge because I recorded email communication speeds that were previously unrecorded. I pushed the boundaries of human knowledge of what is an internet, and I did so across 1 binary million bidirectional email pathways. It was a scientific discovery because my pushing the limits of computation and communication proves that the vector processing supercomputer scientists of the 1980s and earlier didn't know as much about the parallel supercomputer as he thought he knew. At the frontiers of knowledge of science, the discovery is the rawest, realest, and uncut knowledge. The discoverer made darkness visible. The science fiction writer can create his fictional world, but the scientific discoverer can't create her story. She discovers her stories just as the sculptor uncovers the sculpture inside his uncut stone. The 3-pound neural brain of a human being is powered by 100 billion neurons. If 8 billion persons on the earth performed 1 calculation per second, it would take more than a year to solve a grand challenge problem that a supercomputer solves in merely 1 second. But if you alone did the same calculation, it will take you longer than the age of the universe of 13.8 billion years. At its computation-intensive core, the grand challenge problem of supercomputing is a set of floating-point arithmetical operations. Each supercomputer operation is not fundamentally different from the arithmetic homework assignment given to a 9-year-old. At the arithmetic level, within the supercomputer, the grand challenge problem is subtractions and divisions operated on numbers bigger than what a third grader can imagine. Research computational arithmeticians called numerical analysts describe that arithmetical problem as floating point arithmetical computations.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.